Well, hello! Here we are again to talk a bit more about fitness. So today I'm going to show you a bit of my runs. As you can see on this video that's running right now, this is in Consolação, near Peniche, where I stayed for about 2 years. So this is more of a regular kind of place, not that 1 month in a place, move to another place, then move to another one, and always on this on the move lifestyle. This is more static, and here I've accelerated this footage significantly so we don't spend a lot of time on it. It's still gonna be 3 minutes and something. This is a 7.5 kilometer run in about 42 minutes, an average of 5 minutes and 30 seconds per kilometer, which is a decent pace. Nothing amazing, but pretty good, I would say. Especially if you're not a professional athlete or you're training to beat some records or run a marathon. I think it's a pretty decent time for a run that I do 3 times a week usually. So 3 times a week, these amounts to half marathon per week. Obviously, it's not like a marathon in the sense that it's divided in 3 times, which makes it much easier. But you know, when you run this every week, it kind of adds up and you become good at running, let's say so. I usually prefer to run on the beach, and I'm gonna show later a clip on the beach here in Consolação as well. But this year, I don't know why, if because of the swells or something else, the sand shelf in the Consolação beach and Supertubos and all this bay just got out of whack. So it's basically dunes, and you have this inclination that's not really good to run, and even the sand, not even in low tide, when it usually was good 2 years ago, this past year has been awful. It's not compact enough, even at low tide, to run on it. So that's why I started doing this itinerary, which is still good. There's these sidewalks and roads for cyclists and people running or walking where you don't have to go on the road itself. So it's nice to go out, run 40 minutes, 45 minutes. It's great. And then on reaching the beach, I didn't capture this in this video because I stopped the run a bit before there. Then I walked there, and then, but you have a few equipments where you can do pull-ups, you can do push-ups, you can do all these sort of body weight exercises right in front of the beach, which is also cool. As I said, I prefer to run on the beach. Mainly it's because you can run without shoes. For me, it's more comfortable. It's less strenuous on your joints, on your knees, on your ankles, all that. When you run on road like this, you exert more tension on all of your body, right? Because you're striding, and every time you hit the floor, it's like a bigger impact than when you run without shoes on sand or somewhere which is not as compact as asphalt. Nonetheless, when you can do anything else, you have to run on the road. So in that case, it's important to have good shoes, which I don't. But if you go, make sure you have some good shoes to run if you run on the road specifically. And as I said in the beginning, this is a place where I stayed for like 2 years, so it's more of a long-term stay. As staying there more time, you have to find out some ways of exercising if you're not wanting to go to the gym, which I don't. So I do this. I also go cycling. There's the last video, you could see the whole itinerary with a bicycle up to Baleal. That's like 9 kilometers, and it's still pretty cool. Of course, surfing itself, and then you have gyms in Peniche. If you're interested in doing gyms, there's gyms also. And I'm gonna show you other places where I've been and what I've done, and these has been in places like Central America, Southeast Asia. This one was in Portugal, but there's others that I did in Portugal. So you can see completely different countries, and I still find the need to figure out a route that I can do regularly to run because I feel really good doing it. As I've said, I'm going to show you the running on the sand. This is also, it's right on the side on the beach. And I also prefer running on the beach because it's one place where it's acceptable to be without shirt, right? Because some countries, sometimes you see foreigners and tourists act really carelessly, and it's a bit idiotic because it's disrespectful, right? If you're like in Malaysia, you don't want to go running around without a t-shirt. You see these even more like in Bali or Thailand, where foreigners, they just go, and because they are on vacations and this is all. And you can see even in Europe, like Majorca and all that, where they had these issues with foreigners behaving in very unpleasant ways for the locals. But in these countries, for instance, that are Muslim or are more conservative in terms of physical appearance, how you present yourself, going around, if it's not on the beach without shirt, it's like disrespectful. So on the beach, you can run without shirt. It's that place where wherever you are, it's okay to go there without shirt or foreign women with a bikini, and no one will be upset about it. But if you go do this in the middle of a city or something, yeah, some people will get upset about it, of course. So that's also one of the reasons why when I'm traveling, I like to run on the beach. Okay, so I'm going to show you some places. This photo you can see right here. It's me doing a pull-up in Bukit Jalil Park in Kuala Lumpur. This has been many years ago, more than 10 years, I guess, or around 10 years ago. At this time, I wasn't even doing like a very, very regular, regimented routine. We were close by this park. We were checking for a place where we could do some exercise. And we found this place, so we went there and we did a run with a stop on these pull-up bars, and we just did some exercise. It's also cool because it has all these little hills that you go up and down, so it pushes you a little bit further than you would if you were running like track, where it's all the same level, right? And that also adds some dynamic to the running. You're not confined, to a place that is man-made and has walls, and you're just there in an artificial environment doing exercise. I like to be outside. So this second one, this one is in Sri Lanka. So I went there and ended up staying in Irikitaya, and you can see these trajectories. I start right at the door of where I was staying, which is called Mount Top, and you can see there's a bit of elevation changes throughout, and this was pretty cool. The distance is only 4 kilometers, so it's nothing, amazing, but Sri Lanka is very hot and it still pushes you because of these steep hills that in certain parts you have to go through. It still activates your body and your cardio. The cool thing about this location when I was there was that this was mostly untouched. On the border of the bay, you would have like the restaurants, some lodging, but these roads, they were still dirt roads and they were just surrounded by nature, almost a tropical forest. And you could see monitor lizards passing by, monkeys and all that, while you went on a run. So it was very pleasant to do this run. And then when you finish, where I finished, I didn't go immediately up. You would go to one of these cafes right on the bay and have like a smoothie, fresh, not that expensive, and soak your feet on the water, drink the smoothie and go back and take a shower. It was really pleasant to do this almost every day. And you could even surf there. It was where I had my first surf lesson. And the first time I got on a board at 34 years old was there on Irikitaya Bay. I'm very fond of that place and I would like to go there again. But now I don't understand, their visa system is kinda all out of whack. They did an experiment with online electronic visas that seems that didn't pan out. By what I heard, you can go and get an on-arrival visa, but I just didn't want to go through that, so postponing it until they get their shit together. Next, we are back to Portugal, so I stayed here for about 6 months from mid-autumn to mid-spring in a very touristic spot in Portimão, near Praia da Rocha, which is very known during summer, and even at the end of the spring it starts getting very busy with people from all over Europe coming here to enjoy the beach and the nightlife because it has a decent nightlife. And I stayed in these Studio 17 Atlantic hotels. So it's like they have a couple buildings in Portimão, and in all of them they have several apartments to rent, usually for vacations. But one of the nice things is if you're there, go check them out during winter, because during winter this area dies. There are still people, but nothing compared to what it is during summer. So lots of these places, they'll do you a monthly deal that's quite decent, you know. If you're in Europe or you need to stay in Europe for work because your remote allowance is still to be based in Europe, this can be a great place to go during the winter months, because even though it's obviously colder, it's pretty damn good for winter. And you have surf, because during winter there's actually swells that reach here, so you can basically surf throughout the winter. And as you can see here, this is a interesting stretch. It's 7 kilometers, but not only that, as all these peaks that go level changing uphill. And one of the most intense ones is right this one, where it's actually stairs. So this is through the fort that's down there. It's just a very big set of stair steps, and doing that while running, you know, at the rhythm you go running, it just bombs your legs. You just reach on top. And the first time I did it, and following the next one, I just reached, I couldn't even run anymore. I had to like go, you know, 100 meters just walking to then start running again, because my legs were completely bombed. There's no other way of putting it. And then forward, you have another very hilly run up to where you started from. So it's downhill when you start, and then to finish these 7 kilometers, it's uphill. Straight uphill. So it's a pretty decent workout. And next we have Bali. I stayed in Bali. It was when they start shutting down flights, incoming travelers, blah blah blah. And I decided to stay there because I really like Bali, and I ended up staying for almost 2 years at the time. In the initial months, I was spending them in Canggu. Now, Canggu was already quite developed by that time, but by what I hear, it's even more developed nowadays than it was 6 years ago. And it seems that it has a tendency to keep being developed. Of course, it's a pretty nice location. So when I was there, I stayed at this Caroline hostel, which was a very comfortable room. They have these rooms with private bathroom, a big bathroom, air conditioning, a desk to work, very comfortable, big beds, a window, and they were asking for a monthly at the time. Remember, everything was shut down. So they were asking for around $340, I think, per month. Not on the websites. Those, when I went there, they were much more expensive than these, but once you were there and during this time, they would offer you that rate if you wanted to stay more. So I was surfing every day in Canggu. You have Eco Beach, Batu Bolong, so you have all that stretch of surfable places. And at some point, I decided to start again doing some exercise. For this, I did this trajectory that you're seeing. I started from the hostel. I went a bit through the middle of Canggu and then through these roads, because at that time they didn't have that much movement, so not much traffic. On the way back, it was actually pretty much surrounded still by jungle. Not real jungle, you know, not rainforest kind of jungle, but with plenty of trees and greenery all around you on the way back. And you can see it's around 6 kilometers as well. And the other one was when I was in Costa Rica. So at this time was when I started deciding that I should document with videos and all that, all these little things that I wanted to share later on. So this one I actually filmed, and this was afternoon run. It had just rained, so I decided to go for a run once the rain stopped. As I explained in another video about Costa Rica during the rainy season, it usually rains during the afternoon, and this was one of those days. It just rained and it stopped, and I decided to go for a run because the sand, it's a black sand beach because it's a volcanic beach. I personally think they are really beautiful. Even in Bali, like those Eco Beach and Batu Balong, those are also volcanic sand beach. I personally like them. Of course, if you see there's a lot of trash or a lot of human construction, they look like they are dirty because of that. But in this setup, you have all these greenery, all this landscape background that's just full of green. It's quite beautiful. And this run is around 6 kilometers. And as I said, it rained, so I decided to go out because otherwise you cannot run without shoes during midday when the sun is up, because the sand is so hot. So this was like perfect. It rained. I decided, okay, I'm gonna do my run now. And I went for this 6 kilometer run. So as you can see, in every place I go to, I like to keep a schedule of running 2-3 times a week. For me, it's ideal. And I've done it since I can remember. Even when I started traveling 10, 11 years ago, I still try to do it a little bit. So it's basically that, finding a balance between being in a sedentary position where I have to work on a computer and trying to balance that out with exercise, especially as you age, because I was once young as well, and I remember not needing any kind of recovery. While in university, those crazy weekends where you go Saturday partying, even Monday, and then Sunday you have not only classes, but after the classes, kind of to detox your body, you go for a swimming session and you do 40 minutes of swimming, and all this without a problem. Obviously, now I'm no longer 21 years old, I'm 38, so it takes a different toll. And I think it's kind of important to keep your wits about doing exercise explicitly and in a way to keep your shape and your fitness level. Even if you're not planning on going on a contest or a marathon, I still think that, because I don't have any of that as goals, I don't feel the necessity of competing at that level. I'm competitive, but it's like a personal thing. I like to push myself up, like go from starting on 4 kilometers and in 3 months running 10 kilometers without batting an eye. That's my kind of competition. But even then, even if I was not doing this, just because I have a sedentary, monotonous work where I spend a lot of hours sitting in a desk, looking at the computer, I feel like I would still want and need to do some sort of regular exercise schedule. And that was it. This was another episode of Anti-Route. You can see we have some new merch. Check out the store link on the description if you're looking for some cool merch from Anti-Route for your own trips, or just to, share the swag. See you on the next one.